know why, don't know where, don't care less, it's all the same. I have traveled through so many towns. Don't know why, don't know where, don't care less, it's all the same. How can I protect you in this crazy world? It's alright, yeah, it's alright. Can you hear the sound of nothing? Nothing's right, nothing's wrong, don't care less, it's all the same. Love is blind, love is real, don't you know that love is what you feel? It's alright, yeah, it's alright. How can I protect you in this crazy world? It's alright, yeah, it's alright. When the talk is over, all the crowd is gone. Nothing left I can do. Am I ever gonna get through to you? It's alright. How can I protect you in this crazy world? It's alright, yeah, it's alright. How can I protect you in this crazy world? It's alright, yeah, it's alright.
Well, hello and welcome to another Restore Live. Restore Live going out on a Tuesday evening at 8:30. I know that it's different, but sure, well, sometimes you need to do things different. And this evening we have a man from Twitter, from the Twitter sphere, a man that would be a unionist, a man that might not have exactly the same idea of what unionism is that let's say I would, or some of the people that I know would. But however, we've invited him on here for a quick chat with reference how that it is that unionism gets to a place in where that we, well, what do? We reach out into another community. We attract others in a way that, well, that we can make this place being Northern Ireland within the United Kingdom, work for every single person that lives on this patch of land. So without any further ado, what I would like to do, and excuse the fact that Darren has no photo, but what I'd like to do, I'll just put myself down for a second. I'm going to have you look at the photo over to this side here, and you can get an idea of what it is that Darren looks like. Unfortunately, he's on a phone and he wasn't able to get himself up here on video. But anyway, we'll have the chat. So have a look at Darren. So here we're back, and we're bringing Darren up onto the screen, and we're going to begin by asking Darren to really describe who he is, what his unionism means to him, and what type of a unionist is he, and how that he believes that the union can prevail for another 100 years. Over to you, Darren.
Hello, thank you for having me. Right, well, simple. I'm a child of the Troubles. I grew up in the Troubles. So everything that took place, whether it be from loyalism, whether it be from republicanism, I watched it and I despaired. The wholesale bloodshed, and I grieved over every person that was murdered, tearing our community together. So the Good Friday Agreement, was something as a big hope to maybe make a change. To bring us peace and to work towards something better. Now, unfortunately, yes, what I call a lot of people look at Stormont. What have they achieved in the last 25 years? Very little, in my opinion. You know what I mean? When the last 25 years, we've had generations grow up, be born. You know what I mean? We should have been cultivating a new society, one of respect and all the rest of it. We didn't. We have party politics trying to divide us, trying to chip away at each and every community. And for me, as a unionist, you know what I mean? It's not about flags, not about emblems and stuff like that there. It's not about the orange marches or whatever. You know what I mean? I served in the Territorial Army. I also served in Bosnia in '96. You know what I mean? So I had the Union flag on my shoulder. I don't need to see the flag. It's inside me. You know what I mean? I'm a unionist through and through. But at the end of the day, you know what I mean? The failure that I see at the moment, and you said it perfectly at the start there, how do we make Northern Ireland a place for all? And I find that within unionism in recent years, it hasn't been that encompassing to bring people from other communities in. It has failed to do that, failed to entice people in. And that's where my moderate unionism will come in, because I want to create a message that people from the Catholic community, you know what I mean, either feel willing to be able to call themselves unionists, or at least are supportive of the union, even if they can't go as far as doing that. So that would really be my position.
And Darren, would you call yourself an Ulster Unionist supporter?
Currently, as I say, what I call, I haven't been too enthralled by what I call the last 20 odd years. So I stopped voting. Now, in the past, I did vote for Alliance. And when you talk about progressive and stuff like that there, I would not touch Alliance with a barge pole, because it has become the party of feminism. It's become the party of the far left ideologies based on race, gender, sex. And it just, to me, I find that toxic. So, but I can't be a part of, I can't vote for a party like that. The Ulster Unionists have started to move into my area, you know what I mean, where they're starting to speak to me. Now, it may not be 100% perfect, but you know what I mean? I want to engage with the Ulster Unionists, and I want to speak out. I want to engage with the people within the party, to hopefully that maybe somewhere along the line that my voice will hear people like me, and I can steer the Ulster Unionists towards a moderate line that doesn't go over the line and become a unionist version of Alliance.
So, I mean, what do you see about the Ulster Unionist Party that attracts you? I mean, give me an example of what it is that attracts you.
Right. Well, first of all, right now, Mike Nesbitt took my interest years ago, but I didn't get as far as the voting. Right. So we had the likes of the flag protest. Now, in relation to the flag protest, I blame every single party. Every single party had a part to play. The Ulster Unionists, along with the DUP, put out pamphlets to stir up tension, you know what I mean, in Belfast, right? And of course, that was going to cause consequences. Sinn Féin, SDLP, and the Alliance Party decided to hold the vote at the worst possible time for business in Belfast. And what I call decided to push that vote through and put the flag down. Now, in all honesty, anytime I went into Belfast, I never seen the flag. So somebody had to put it down. I would have noticed. But at the end of the day, it's when they done the vote, and the fact that it was so visual, and the fact that people were pumping people up, and people went out and they protested and they got themselves arrested and got criminal records. You know what I mean? And these are the people that sat back at home. You You know what I mean? They didn't take responsibility. They weren't getting the records. They weren't getting arrested. It was the poor, what I call it, working class people who have been riled up and put onto the streets. And that's, you know what I mean, why I at that stage I could not vote, you know what I mean, for any party. But the Ulster Unionists, in regards to what I call Doug Beattie, right, he's Royal Irish and all the rest of it. Back in '96, pre-deployment to Bosnia, I was in a place down near Salisbury, and me and a few fellas went out to a local pub. In that local pub, there was a Royal Irish soldier, and he thought I was a mediator going out to Bosnia. And he turned around and he says, "Why are you going to Bosnia? Go home, bring our people together." And it was very emotional, and there was no bitterness. All he wanted to do was see his people in Northern Ireland brought together and the violence stopped. And in some ways, I see that with Doug Beattie.
Okay, so Darren, again, I'm just going to address the live chat here, and I just see some of the live chat from across the platforms. I'm going to ask you to stick with it, to stick with the stream, because what we really want to try to do is that, as I said at the very, very start, that myself and Darren, we have different views on how that it is that unionism should, and I'm going to say, quote unquote, progress. But what we're here to explore is that how that people actually see and view, say, for example, the Ulster Unionist Party, and as Darren was talking about the Alliance Party there, how that it is that a unionist could have even voted for the Alliance Party, even be that in the past. So Darren, what I'm going to do right now is I want to play a short video clip, and I'm asking people to stay tuned in because with some interesting video clips, and again, you're going to get to learn a bit about what it is that we at Restore have been doing over the years by interviewing various people in different locations and whatnot. And we've never really brought this to bear of late. I mean, it's back in the past, and this is what we're here to do this evening. So I want to ask Darren. Darren, I want to ask you this before I play this short video clip. But I mean, what do you think of the Ulster Unionist Party's stance on the LGBT movement? Now, again, you and I had a little chat before that we come on screen here. And as I say that I'm a live and let live type fella. I mean, I'm the type of fella that, you know, I don't subscribe to being gay, but however, I believe that your belief, your culture, your way of life, your lifestyle choices, they should be between you and your fellow enthusiasts, and they should never be permitted, and even whatever it is that I believe, should never be permitted to interfere in anyone else's way of life. So asking the question, what is it? What do you think about the I'm going to say the over involvement that the Ulster Unionist Party have with the LGBT movement?
Right. Well, I have no problem with LGBT. I have a problem with what I call it. Let me see. What I call it. There's people that are pushing an agenda within that group. You know what I mean? Which I find toxic and dangerous. You know what I mean? So people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, who identify as trans, as far as I'm concerned, in a civil society, they should be equal to everybody else, but they should not have more rights than everybody else. And when it comes to things like schools, you know what I mean? As I say, there's sex education. It can be briefly talked about at that stage, but it shouldn't be. There shouldn't be the propaganda on a daily, weekly, yearly basis on sex, basically, in my opinion.
And do you believe that the UUP probably go too far in their support for that movement, given what they've said?
Right. Well, too much of it I haven't gone into with the LGBT. I know what it called the Ulster Unionists, along with the DUP. They some ABC or whatever alphabet council, they put it down. Now, the one thing I would say about the Ulster Unionist Party is, and it's part of the reason why I engage with the people of the Ulster Unionists. I'm not a member. You know, I just voted. But what I like the direction that they're heading in. Are they currently where I want them to be? No, I think there's a lot. I think there's still a direction to go. If they can be the party of, you know, basically classical liberal, small government, no interference into people's private lives, what their religion is, what they do, you know, their freedoms, individual freedoms. You know what I mean? Everybody should be treated equally, but nobody should be treated more equally than another.
Yeah, I like that phrase, and that's one for from Orwell. Is that no, some animals are more equal than others, and I call it a hierarchy of rights, and I believe that everybody should have the same rights. I also, as I suggested not too long ago, there that your whatever it is that you believe in should not be permitted to interfere in anyone else's way of life, and I think you just described that in the same sort of manner as I did. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little video clip here, and I'm going to play it. This was something that I seen. I went with a friend. We were in Belfast one Saturday afternoon, and here came along toddling the Ulster Unionist Party. We'll play this clip and I'll come back and I'll ask you a few questions about it.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the Union Jack should never be changed. That's the flag of your country.
But here's the whole point. If that's the argument, then football teams shouldn't change it. People shouldn't wear Union Jack t-shirts, boxer shorts. It's
It be lodged with the Parades Commission to have an official protest against Pride.
Good man.
So, unionism, particularly the Ulster Unionist Party, they have lost their way. They have lost the plot. They need to roll back, or they're going to be a party of history. They will be finished. They're almost there, and they're slowly but surely chipping away at themselves. Have a thought and spare thought for the fact that there's not only LGBT people in this world. When you're reaching out to LGBT people, what you've got to do is you've got to think about others within society. In a diverse society, diversity means that everybody is included. If you want a society which is based upon respect and fairness and equality, that equality, fairness and respect has to be for everyone. And you know, we really need to look at things in a way that whenever we have contentious issues, that we lay out bare everybody's problems and we build a solution based upon not the wants of people, but the needs of society.
They don't even realise what they're doing. You know, I mean, the Union Jack should never be changed. That's the flag of your country.
But here's the whole point. If that's the argument, then football teams shouldn't change it. People shouldn't wear Union Jack t-shirts, boxer shorts.
Darren, one question before we move on with the clip, but the Union Jack, what do you think of the Union Jack? Should it be defiled? Should it be defaced? Are the Ulster Unionist Party the party that should be most tasked, being the party of Carson and Craig, to keep that Union Jack as it is without actually dickying it up in fancy rainbow colours?
Well, here's the first thing I would say. Doug Beattie is a soldier. What I call whenever, you know what I mean, I was training as a soldier, there was only one flag that was far superior than the Union flag, and that was the standard of your regiment. And that was the one that was never allowed to hit the ground. You know what I mean? So, do I want the Ulster Unionists? I know you say about what it called. To me, it's not a massive. It doesn't insult me. You know what I mean? As I say, the Union flag is inside me. You know what I mean? That's the most important thing. I don't need to see it. You know what I mean? People can do what they want, but I'm a Unionist. I'm proud. You know, I've got a British passport, and I'm proud to be British. And I've done service. You know what I mean? For Britain, for the UK, and likewise with Doug.
And yeah.
Now you do that with standard, you know, of one of the regiments of the British Army, where people have died. People haven't died under the Union flag; they've died under the standard of the regiment that they fought under.
Yeah. You see, again, I remember I met a man that was from Iran, and he came to the UK. He became an architect. He actually died during COVID, and I had some conversation with this man. And this man had said to me, you know, there's places in the world in where that the flag must be respected. It must not be defaced. It must not be defiled. The children in the schools should be taught to respect the flag, to look up to the flag. I mean, that's the flag of your country. And if you don't have the respect for the foundation and the things that represent the foundation, how then can you have respect for what it is that you're meant to be in terms of your United Kingdom unionism? So again, that's why I was asking you about the flag. And as you see, I felt it. I took it upon myself to walk out into that parade that day, and I didn't know that Doug Beattie was going to come along with a rainbow flag himself and the Ulster Unionist Party. But as you'll have seen, I went on to explain why that it is that what it is that I believe in terms of that people they everybody has rights. When you're reaching out into the other community, and this is what most of this discussion with you and I is going to be about, but when you're reaching out into the other community, well, you can't disenfranchise the people that from our community at the same time. I mean, I believe that you can make yourself open and inviting to others without actually changing one jot or one tittle of who that it is you are. And if people don't respect what it is that you are when you respect what it is that they are they the type of people that you want to reach out to, Darren?
Well, you see, unfortunately, in the Western world, we're like what it called back in the 80s in America, the American flag, what it called was the most, when it was put on such a pedestal, what I mean, by the American people. Whereas today, they burn it in the streets. They, what it called, the face. I think we have that all over the West. You know what I mean? It's, what we would have grown up in. You know what I mean? It's not the place that we are today. You know what I mean? What it called Europe is not the place that it is today. The United States, the whole Western world. You know what I mean? We live in a different world and we have a different ideological fight. But as unionists who want to remain within the union, what I mean, we have to be willing to, in some ways, be flexible. You know what I mean? To bring as many people in, because at the end of the day, what I call our place in the union is what I call to always beat the 50+1. And the only way to do that is try and bring as many people in. You know what I mean? What does unionism stand for? You know what I mean? It stands for many things to many different people. You know what I mean? For me, I would be probably, as I say, centre left, maybe a wee bit right, depending. It fluctuates. I'm more central. And there's a lot of gay people, you know what I mean, who are likewise. You know what I mean? Who are being subverted by what I call ideology. And are screaming out, you know what I mean, for a political party, you know what I mean, to take them in and make them part of the fold.
Can I ask, do you think that there are forces in this world? You say that the place is not the same. Do you think that there's forces in this world that are intentionally trying to divide people with this, this identity politics, whether it be with LGBT, whether it be with Black Lives Matter, but white lives do not matter? Do you think that there's divisions intentionally being caused in this world?
Right, is there a conspiracy? Who knows? You know what I mean? As I say, what it calls, it would be very hard to prove that. And I could throw many different conspiracy theories out there. Are they conspiracy fact? I don't know. But the only thing that I can put down to is Yuri Brezhnev. So what it called...
let me put it this way, Darren. Maybe I put that in the wrong way to you. But I mean, whenever that there was the criminal that was George Floyd that was murdered in America, we see what's happening. Well, the people, I mean, that's what the law's there for. The law's there to take the policemen that caused that to court. Should that have rippled out all around the Western world? Should that have ended up manifesting itself on the streets of London, and where that the Churchill statue would have been defaced? Yeah. And then there was a young guy. Now, again, I'm saying to people this, and I actually challenge people to call me a racist, because for the people that knows me, well, they know that can't be true. But however, I'm saying that there were things like there was a young man that flew a plane over a football ground in England, and he was cancelled from his job, him and his girlfriend, because he flew over with a tail on the airplane saying that white lives matter too. Surely all lives should matter, not just black lives. Are you still there, Darren?
Oh no, 100%. Like, you know, I mean, I don't fall down that rabbit hole. Yeah, I'm still here. I'm saying I don't fall down that particular rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Because I see it as well as organisations.
Whenever you see that the police were bowing the knee to these people, taking the knee, and yet they were challenging veterans that were standing trying to protect, say, for example, the statues. I mean, is that a conspiracy to say that, hang on a wee minute, this isn't fair, this isn't impartial policing?
Well, I'm not saying that's a conspiracy. I know about all that. It's, I mean, what is the methodology behind it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we can't really pinpoint. We can talk about things like the WEF. We can talk about maybe state actors or whatever.
We're talking about, do you think that there's things in this world that is generally here to divide us? For example, again, whenever we're talking about, say, the LGBT people, and as you say, that I've absolutely nothing against them, but however, is that I don't like a hierarchy of rights for anyone. And I do believe that the Ulster Unionist Party go way, way, way too far overboard whenever it is that they're supporting these people. I'm going to give you an example. And there's a lady on here that just, tried to prompt me to say this. But I can remember a time whenever that Doug Beattie, for the veteran that he is, and I totally respect his service to the British Army, but there was a protest outside the BBC in Belfast where they were protesting for the persecution and prosecution of veterans. And Doug Beattie chose to stand with Sinn Féin at an LGBT rally around at the City Hall. These are the sorts of things that we're saying about the Ulster Unionist Party, whenever they go too far to the one side of things, and they go overboard, in my honest opinion, with reference trying to support the things that I believe that are actually dividing us. Surely it would be better to say that everybody has rights. Yes, it is hate crime if you want to, aggress against those people in any way, shape, or fashion, but not to give them a hierarchy of rights over anyone. And the same applies for these people where they were saying that Black Lives Matter, but there was a man who was cancelled from his job because he said, well, hang on a minute, white lives surely matter too.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like what I call a lot of what you say, I agree. Doug Beattie is a politician who has a fine line, you know what I mean? And he will have pressures from whether people within the party or, you know what I mean, as I say, a lot of what has taken place has been pushed forward by press and by what I call companies, who are pushing this agenda, who've jumped onto it. So there's a lot of pressure to try and make yourself irrelevant to as many people as possible.
So now that we're getting somewhere, are you saying that Doug Beattie is, I mean, it was put to me one time like this, and we're not just talking about the Ulster Unionist Party, but we're talking about virtue signalling, virtue signalers. Are you saying that they virtue signal because that they fear the onslaught from the press if they say the wrong thing?
No, I'm not necessarily saying that. But what I am saying is what I call, you have to appeal to the electorate. So at the end of the day, you're going to moderate. Now, even myself, as a moderate unionist, there are certain limitations I will go in my own speech. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I know what the consequences are going to be. It's going to be an argument. It's not going to have anything progressive. It's not going to progress the argument or the dialogue. So I tend to maybe circumvent, come from a different direction without going directly, you know what I mean, into a conflict.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what we're going to do now is that we're going to move on to something else here as we go. We'll stay around. Start at 8:30. We'll stay to 9:30. That okay with you, Darren? Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's 100%.
Good man. So what I'm going to do here is that, the first conversation that you and I had, and that was I was on a Twitter exchange, and I think it was this girl called Arlene O'Neill, who's probably watching. I think she said she would be watching. One of the questions that was being, I'm going to say, one of the things that was being explored was it's to do with this protocol, this Windsor framework. It's to do with a thing called the Act of the Union, 1801. Yes. And Arlene, this is what started you and I talking, is that the Arlene O'Neill was saying that it's irrelevant. It hasn't been relevant since, I think she said, was it 1922, or did she say 1801? So I think she maybe even said. And I think then you had said, you give an interpretation of what it was that you thought that the Act of the Union was worth today in 2023. Would you just like to explain that?
Right. Okay. Right. So the Act of Union, what was it? Right. Okay. There was a trading aspect of it. So the trading aspect of 1801, and I'd say it wasn't the first attempt at the Act of Union. The first attempt was in 1799, which didn't go through. A lot of Orange men were actually against the Act of Union. They wanted to retain the Parliament of Ireland. So what I call it, the Act of Union was to dissolve, just like the Scottish, what I call Parliament, under Westminster, under English control, with representation from what I call Ireland. I think it was 100 MPs towards Westminster.
Darren, without getting into a history lesson with the Act of Union, let's try to keep it, because we've only a certain amount of time to do this.
Okay.
But with reference, what it was that you said about the Act of Union today is that I think you said that it was something happened in 1922, and you give your interpretation of what it is that the Act of Union actually means to unionists today. Explain that.
No, to me, looking at it, so I'm not going to talk for the majority of unionists or even modern unionists, but what I will say is the Act, what I call the Ireland Government Act 1920, which created the Southern Ireland government, the Free State Parliament, and Stormont. You know what I mean? Essentially, give us home rule. You know what I mean? Even though, yes, Westminster was still our sovereign parliament, you know what I mean, the higher parliament government, but we had essentially home rule, which the Act of Union dissolved, in 1801, basically home rule parliament.
So that was a change. The Act of the Union in what? Well, you talk about 1922 here,
right?
Are you?
Right. So in 1920, so it came into effect in 1921.
Yeah, go.
So what I call which created a parliament, both north and south. Now, what I call the original Act in 1801 was to dissolve the parliament.
You don't need to go back to the 1801. You were specifically talking the other day about 1921, 1922. I think you said that it was disapplied, subjugated. What was the word you used?
No. Right, so what it was a change in the Act of Union. So it wasn't the original Act of 1801, and then what I call, when we go even further to the Good Friday Agreement and devolution throughout the UK, essentially that was given Scotland against Parliament.
In your interpretation, so I can see that you're trying to get yourself out of something here, but were you saying that in 1921-22 that the Act of the Union was changed in the wording? Is that what you're saying?
No, well, essentially, it was adjusted. You know what I mean? As I say, so what I call the allowed home rule.
What specifically was adjusted? For what?
Well,
to provide for what?
I can't remember what was the second point. You know what I mean? In the what I call the Act of Union. It's been a while since I looked at it, but it was basically the Act of Union was basically dissolving the Parliament of Ireland in 1801 and nearly 100 years prior in Scotland, when they had their Act of Union.
Yeah,
and everything was then brought to Westminster.
Look, without Scotland and everything else, you see, we're specifically talking about Northern Ireland. And what Arlene O'Neill was arguing the other day, that it's irrelevant. And I think that you then chirped in and you said that it was defunct, it was whatever, changed. I don't know the words that it was you were using.
No, I would say it has changed, yes.
Do you want me to make this simple for you? Very, very simple. And I think I said to you the other day is that I was part of the case. There was two cases that went from the Belfast here judicial review to the appeal court to the Supreme Court. I sat in the Supreme Court for a couple of days. We sat and we listened to the government lawyers arguing that the Act of the Union, they were defending that they had actually, just prior to the protocol, what they did was that they changed the Act of the Union. So they disapplied it as high exactly that they were saying. So what I'm trying to say and get at here is that whenever Ireland partitioned, that's the words they use, Ireland partitioned, that Northern Ireland didn't partition with Ireland. Northern Ireland stayed part of the United Kingdom. And what happened was that what was in that Act of the Union, specifically Article 6 for trade we're talking about, were that it guaranteed people's rights from right around the United Kingdom, England, Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland, in the absence of the Republic of Ireland whenever they partitioned. You see, that Act of Union still exists today, albeit as the governments, they successfully argued that it's disapplied. They says that it's disapplied.
but then I can put something else in there. You know what I mean? So if it's equal rights throughout the United Kingdom, we didn't have equal rights throughout the United Kingdom.
Well, look. Well, what you're going to try to argue here is you're going to try to argue that there is certain divergences in terms of our rights, okay? Whether it be LGBT rights
No,
or
no, 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 no.
whatever.
It's nothing to do with that. It's a foundation of Northern Ireland. When Northern Ireland, what it called, existed within the United Kingdom, and the South went away, what it called, there was a voting. The voting rights were changed in England in 1917. Whereas when Northern Ireland came into existence as Northern Ireland, what I call it, we took on the old voting rights, which meant unless you.
Are you aware that Article 6 of the Act of Union is in respect of trade? Are you aware of that?
Yes,
And
yes,
what
I'm
it
aware
does
of that.
actually say in Article 6 is it says that citizens of the United Kingdom will be on, are you ready for it, quote unquote, an equal footing. An equal footing. And this is where the argument lies, you see, and this is the Arlene O'Neill and anyone else. Like Doug Beattie also said that the Act of the Union doesn't matter. And this is why I asked you the other day, were you listening to Doug Beattie when you heard that? Because, I mean, as I
No,
say,
no.
what did the government defend in court, in the Supreme Court, by saying that, well, we had to disapply the Act of the Union? Why? Because the wording wasn't consistent with the protocol. That's what they said. That's
Yeah,
why they disapplied it. Now they said disapply. They used that term disapply. We were saying subjugate, and they said, well, disapply. And my interpretation of that is that you can disapply a handbrake in a car, but you can also reapply at some future date a handbrake in a car. And this is what the government were actually arguing. Now they defeated our argument, but they didn't actually defeat the argument against them. What they defeated was that they said that the Westminster Parliament is sovereign, and they can make laws, they can break laws, they can change laws, they can do whatever they want with laws, and the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction over that. So it wasn't that the arguments were wrong. It wasn't that the arguments were not actually saying that unionists are being unfairly treated here in Northern Ireland, given that you've disapplied the Act of the Union, which has consequences for the 1998 Act, and specifically Article 1, in where that there can't be constitutional change unless that there's a referendum put to the people. Well, the fact of the matter is that given that the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, they say, is an internationally recognised agreement, when you have the international parties to that agreement, which actually want us subjugated, which want us separated from the United Kingdom, well, they're not standing up and saying, hang on a wee minute, this can't happen. But what they did say was that it can happen. It can't happen if there's going to be a border on the island of Ireland, but they don't mind a border between England, Scotland, and Wales, and in Northern Ireland. So again, what I was trying to literally impress upon you, and I wanted to do it by saying what I'm saying, is that the Act of the Union 1801 was good up until the point in 2021. It was actually late 2020 in where that the protocol came into place, and it came into place on the 31st of December in 2021. And that's a fact. So the Act of the Union still applied. It's still applied in Northern Ireland, and I'm just trying to say to you, and I hope this helps, is in whenever the Ireland partitioned, that we received those rights to be on an equal footing for purposes of trade, along with England, Scotland, and Wales. So I hope that helps, and I hope that helps Arlene O'Neill and also Doug Beattie,
yeah,
because that was one of
but
our contentions with Doug, because he said that he wasn't particularly worried about the Act of the Union.
No, but then the thing.
He's still there.
Oh yeah. No, it's just been dropping it there a wee bit. No, what I would say is the Act of Union. That is one part, which is trade, but then what it called we have to look at the rest of it. As I say, what was the Act of Union? What it called the Rural Parliament, and everything done under Westminster. I'd say that was changed.
Stop for a moment. This is all about trade. This is all about the union split up into two parts. it's political union, and it's economical union or economic union. And under this protocol, which is now the protocol rejigged, it's become the Windsor Framework. And what has happened is that now this is where we're going to get to. We're now coming to the crux of the matter. And this is the contention that I would have against the Ulster Unionist Party, who is telling us that we need to get back into Stormont, who is telling us that we need to work this agreement. We need to take the good parts out of this agreement. But what this agreement actually does is that it scuppers, completely scuppers Article 6 Act of the Union, which provides for our trade. And what it does is that, now, let's look at the border as it stands. There's Green Lanes. Now, this is Doug Beattie. Doug Beattie actually claimed to put this in place. He calls it the landing zone. He said that he sold it in 2019 to the American government. He sold it to the Dublin government. He sold it to the EU. He says that the British government bought into it. And would you believe it's in the Alliance Party's party manifesto before the last Assembly election, this thing called the landing zone. Now, what is the landing zone? It's the Windsor Framework. And let me explain. It is an EU customs and regulatory border. It's at Larne, it's at Belfast, it's at Warrenpoint, in where, well, the British government say that there's no quote unquote sense of a border, but it is a border. There is digital data being supplied by the Inland Revenue directly to the EU. The EU have complete, and I say that again, emphasize complete governance over trade in Northern Ireland. The British government don't have a say whatsoever. And the EU, then, if there's any arbitration to take place, we'll talk about that thing called the Stormont break in a second. But if there's any decisions to be made over trade in Northern Ireland, the EU have the final say, and the European Court of Justice has the final say. Beyond that, again, should there ever be a dispute on that trade. Now, I'm saying that no unionist whatsoever could ever agree to such a thing. Now, you probably didn't vote in the Brexit referendum. I did. I formed part of the 17.4 plus million people on the 23rd of June 2016 to leave the EU. Now, effectively, what has happened since that referendum is that I've had my democracy removed. I'm not afforded the same democracy as people in England, Scotland, and Wales. I've had a border placed in the REC at Larne, at Belfast, and at Warrenpoint. I am effectively a second-class UK citizen. The disapplication of the Act of the Union, what that has actually done is that has removed me, voided me of my UK citizens' rights. Now, I'm saying, why would we ever contemplate?
But you're not.
But of course I am. I don't have the same rights. It says in the Act of the Union, Article 6.
No, well,
every unionist. It's for
right,
trade. We're talking about for trade here. That's what it is. That's half of our union.
Yeah.
That's pretty much.
But I'm talking about it's a
cut the union down the middle and give half to the EU. That's what's happened. That's what's happened. That's what Doug is espousing. That's what the Ulster Unionist Party are espousing. That's what the Ulster Unionist Party claims, I have it in video here, to have put in place. I asked the question, are they really unions?
But what I was saying is, no, well, absolutely, because at the end of the day, when you come to the likes of Good Friday Agreement and all the rest of it, it was easy for us, what I called to integrate, because we're all a part of the EU. Then what I called the DUP went out and they said, right, that's it, what I called, we'll get out. Who were they acting on behalf of? They weren't acting on behalf of the people, because it created a crisis for Northern Ireland.
Stop yourself for a second here, right? Why do you think that ordinary people listen to the politicians? Do you not think that ordinary people can make up their own minds with reference to do they want to be in the EU? Do they not want to be in the EU? I mean, you're talking like a classic, I'm going to say, like you sound like Keir Starmer or Naomi Long from the Alliance Party when you're saying the DUP decided that everybody should vote this way and everybody followed the DUP.
But they were the only ones that actually pushed it. It was the only party that actually pushed it, and they were pushing something that caused great instability.
Take me. So you think I listened to the DUP whenever I made my decision to leave the EU?
I'm not saying everybody did, but it was the messaging. There was a reason why I didn't vote.
Other unionists felt that. Do you
No,
really
well,
think?
as I say, there were people who, from the Republican National side, voted for it because what I call, and they got exactly what they wanted: complete instability of Northern Ireland. What I call, where republicanism and nationalism has got a resurgence of confidence, and where what I call unionism, you know what I mean, is eating itself alive at the moment.
Um, you're saying that unionism is eating itself alive. Are you not?
It,
Again, what you just said there was that people voted for Brexit because that the DUP voted for Brexit, and what you're trying to say there is that people can't make up their own minds. I mean, do you not think that that's a wee bit, I'm going to say, insulting to unionists in
no,
Northern
not
Ireland,
really, because what I call,
or
I
right
know
around the United
friends.
Kingdom who decided to
I,
leave? They wanted to leave the EU. I mean, I'll give
there's
you
plenty of
reason.
I know there's plenty of people who made that conscious decision. You know what I mean? Me personally, there was a lot of information coming out from both sides, and to be honest, I didn't vote. There was just too much what I called muddy water. But at the end of the day, if we look back at it in hindsight, it has created an absolute disaster for here in Northern Ireland and a resurgence and
So,
confidence within nationalism.
so what has created the disaster, in your opinion?
Right. Well, and disaster is what I call a lot of young people, you know, like the idea of just free movement. You know what I mean? So what I call we talk about EU subjugation and stuff like that. There, how much of that is EU subjugation or just failure on our politicians, blaming the EU? You know what I mean, for their own mischief.
So again, would you say that Brexit caused the problems within unionism, or would you say that the anti-democratic forces who didn't accept the result in the Brexit referendum, would you not say that they have played Brexit for all that it is worth? Would you not
Well,
say that?
Well, as I say, what I call this was played up about the problem with the Good Friday Agreement and all the rest of it. Now, if we got, as I say, hard borders in Northern Ireland and what I call we're pulled out of the EU completely, you know, that would actually give an even more confident and vicious attack to push for what I call a United Ireland, something I do not want. You know what I mean? I would rather have a society that those who may be swayed or will be swayed towards unionism, and that we would strengthen the union and the will to live here.
Right. Okay. So we're going to get on to the south in a second, and maybe we could stay for a wee bit longer. But let's just play a little clip that I wasn't going to play, and this is myself talking just shortly after the protocol was put in place. This is myself talking to a man called Professor John Tong from the University of Liverpool, and I want you to listen very, very carefully to the question that was asked to John Tong here, Darren. Let's look at this concept of democracy, and whenever that you would place your axe on a ballot paper, and I'll just pop the particular ballot paper up here for people to see. And the commentary I would give here is that it was a referendum for the entire United Kingdom, as you can see. I mean, if I place my axe here in the Leave the European Union, and 17.4 plus million other people also done exactly the same, and we won the referendum, so to speak. Is it ever right? Now, this is a very serious question, and I'd like you to answer this really, carefully for me. But is it ever acceptable from an academic's point of view, from a professor of politics point of view, that democracy would be split up in the way that it was split up, and having, say, for example, there's 4 constituent parts, 3 constituent parts are treated differently than 1 constituent part? Why is that ever acceptable, John?
It's a great question, John, and it's a difficult one. It's a complex one to answer, because I get the premise of your question, and in many ways, I know where you're going with it, and I agree to a considerable extent. You asked remain or leave. It didn't say, but one part of the UK will leave on different terms to the rest of the UK, and that's where I think that the loyalists protested. And the DUP and UUP are correct in posing departure on different terms from the rest of the UK. We also live in a world of...
Darren, you heard the question. It was the referendum. Everybody voted in the same ballot paper. We won the referendum. That's democracy. Why is it ever right that if there's 4 constituent parts, England, Scotland, and Wales, and Northern Ireland, that 1 constituent part would be treated in a completely different way? Is that ever right in your view?
No, look, well, yes, it was a democratic vote, you know what I mean, throughout the whole of the UK. And what it calls, say, Scotland, Northern Ireland, you know what I mean, were against it in the majority of
Darn,
the
darn,
vote.
darn, darn. It was a UK-wide
Yeah,
referendum.
yes, I agree with that, you know what I mean. And in normal circumstances, I would say, yeah,
So are we
yes,
going to treat,
absolutely.
okay, so people in North Down voted to leave, people on the Falls Road voted not to leave. Are we going to say that the Falls Road should stay and the people in North Down should like leave? Is that what you're saying there?
No, I'm saying what it called that I'm
But that's
looking at it
basically what
further.
you're.
Yes, but if we had it applied, you know what I mean, 100% border and what I call it retracted out of the what I call it the EU completely, we would be at what I call an economic deficit disadvantage. We would become a backwater, you know what I mean, in the UK. You know what I mean for trade
Why are
wise.
you why are you predicting things that you've obviously no experience
Right.
with? I
No,
mean,
well,
what
I
gives you
work
the
in
qualifications to
I
say?
work in
What gives you
I
the
work in transport.
qualifications to say? So right. So what's your qualifications to say that we'll become an economic backwater if we get Brexit?
Right. Okay. Well, when we go back to when was it the early 2000s, stuff like that. There, a lot of companies have been offsetting things and putting them out of the UK, and especially Northern Ireland. So we'd have what are called government agencies giving incentives for companies to come in. They would come in, they would use those incentives. Once that ran out, they left. And what it
Can I
called
just
and as I say,
can I give my take on that? You see, what happened was that as a result of the
mhm.
protocol, we couldn't get certain things delivered to Northern Ireland. A lot of companies were deciding not to deliver things to Northern Ireland. Then what was happening was the trade was being reorientated away from the UK single market into the away from the EU internal market or the UK internal market to the EU single market, which was causing the problem. It was the protocol that was causing the problem. It was the fact that we
Oh
couldn't
no,
get
no,
our
I'm
goods
not
here. It
talking
was
about the time of the protocol. I'm actually talking about early millennia. You know what I mean? I seen what do you call it? Things disappear. We were guaranteed things like call centers and stuff like that there in the mid to
well,
late
that was like,
nineties.
like
You know
Darren,
what I
that
mean?
was
Nowhere
the
like in
EU.
manufacturing.
That was the EU that
It
was
wasn't the
taking them
EU.
astray.
It
It
wasn't.
was
You know,
because they were moving them to emerging markets, is the term. That they were moving a
no,
lot of
you
our,
had an
our,
open
our
market.
industry.
No,
It was a
no,
thing
it
to
was to
do
do
with
with the. It was due to the rich, you know what I mean, who could what it called move to, and a lot of these things went to the Far East, outside the EU.
well, here's why a lot of people wanted
And
to
what it called the
leave.
British government
Northern
were
Ireland
offering these lovely jobs, call centres, nice and clean.
Northern Ireland used to flourish under the project of interdependency. What actually happened was that everybody got a slice of the cake, and the slice of the cake didn't happen to be the same slice of the cake. I mean, they often say the standard is that they say that the UK got financial services, and I mean, even the likes of coal there. I mean, they closed down all the coal mines, which was probably right. But then we were importing coal from Germany, is the way things worked. So I'm just saying, you see, there was a wider project of interdependency, which would have made people interdependent upon each other, and therefore that they couldn't fight with each other because they had to trade with each other. I mean, that's been going on for a very, very, very long time. So if you're going to go way, way back there, I mean, that's where we're going. But then you look at Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland what age are you, Darren? If you don't mind me asking, I'm 54. I don't hide my age. What age are you?
All right, well, I'm 48, coming 49.
Okay, so we've both lived in our experience to know that there used to be a lot of industry here in Northern Ireland. Whether it be engineering, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be shipbuilding, whether it be linen, whatever. And times actually changed over the years and where that we lost our industry. And there's two reasons for that. Well, there was the IRA campaign. I mean, a lot of people didn't want to be here. But then there was the things like, you remember the Gallagher's factories and whatnot that made cigarettes, the Caterpillar factories that made,
Yep.
and actually, a lot of these people were incentivized to move their companies out of here and into what was known as emerging markets. And that happened over the years. And that
Mm-hmm.
probably formed, I mean, the DUP didn't tell us that, but that probably formed a lot of people's opinion as to why that it is that that the UK would have been better forging their own way in the world. People say that you're part of a greater, project. Look, let me put it this way. You see, if the EU had been, I'm just going to say, they weren't dictatorial. They were not, imposing what it is that they wanted in terms of. I mean, it was meant to be a great economic project, but over time, it moved and it morphed into a political project. In where that what they wanted is they wanted your borders down, they wanted your identity away. I'm going to give you a phrase that was sent to me in January of 2020, just before COVID. I was talking to a man called Professor John Brewer, who is the one of the leading professors at the George Mitchell Institute for Global Peace in Queen's University. People that are involved with that project are people like Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Tony Blair, Alistair Campbell. I believe Jeffrey Donaldson's involved in it, even though that he would deny it. Peter Robinson, I believe he's involved in it also. But these people, the professor from there, a guy called John Brewer, he said to me that Britain for the British, Ireland for the Irish, Britain for the British, Ireland for the Irish, America for the Americans, is pernicious, unchristian, and politically dangerous. And I thought, well, politically dangerous to who, John? Is it politically dangerous to you? You that wants globalization, us that wants to protect our borders, us that doesn't want to see the overburdening of our society, us that wants to look after the people that is here first, and then we give our charity out to the rest of the world. But the European project isn't about that. The European project is about that. Well, I call it a dictatorial Ponzi scheme. In where that I think before that we left, that Britain was putting in £20 billion and getting £8 billion back, and the projects that the £8 billion was coming back into, well, they were largely known as NGOs, non-governmental organisations, who were actually destabilising the society in which we live. So there's the reasons why a lot of people would have wanted to leave the EU. And let me just say this is that isn't it just a pity that I mean, there was a dictatorship that installed themselves at the top of the EU and they began to destabilize for their own selfish ideological interests.
Well, that's to say, I can't really mention go down that rabbit hole. But you can say that about what I call the UK. You know what I mean? Boris Johnson, whenever what I call the pandemic, when I thought he would stand firm and what I call let liberty, you know what I mean, reign supreme, but he didn't. You know what I mean? Caved into the media and all the rest of them to lock down. And unfortunately, some of our more left-wing parts of the country, Northern Ireland included, you know what I mean, decided what I call to introduce mandates. Yeah. You know what I mean? Which are things I didn't like, but that wasn't mandated by Europe. That was mandated by our own politicians.
Yeah. So, would you say that politics is better served whenever the seat and the power of authority is closer to home or further away, Darren?
No, well, you can say that about Westminster as well. You know what I mean? Personally, you know what I mean? I would rather a better class of politicians. I speak to some people, I think Henry on Twitter.
So, Darren, without talking about Henry on Twitter, would you say, I'll say that again, would you say that the seat and power of authority is better served for the people closer to home or further away?
No, well, it'll always be closer to home, of course.
So, okay, so now that we understand why a lot of people wanted to leave the EU, would you say that you can change anything that the EU pass into your country by directive?
Well, as I say, what I call, if you want to operate within the European club, then you have to follow their rules.
Okay, so who makes the directive? Who enforces the directive? Is it a conglomerate of politicians, MEPs from all around this country, or do the EU Commission have the say?
Well, of course, as I say, if you want to play by the EU rules and operate in their space, it'll be them that are creating the rules. We don't have MEPs because essentially we don't have representation within Europe.
So a lot of people say that it's an unelected bureaucracy that is making the rules. Is that fair? Is that democracy?
As I say, we don't have direct voting rights for these people. No.
You're beginning to see why that it is a lot of people wanted to leave the EU. You're
Oh
beginning
no,
to see,
I understand why people would have that opinion. But as I say, what I call there's the aspect of Northern Ireland and it remaining as part of the United Kingdom, us being British, all the rest of it. You know what I mean? That to me, what I call the longer goal for that is more important to me. You know what I mean? I do believe that we could have unionist unity, but not when we are so stabilised. You know what I mean? In our governance. I'm not saying that our politicians who are essentially managers of the different aspects of our government are not necessarily very good managers, but we need some sort of management, you know what I mean, in our government to give stability.
okay, so you advocate giving up the only leverage that we have and going back into Stormont. Is that what you advocate right now?
No, I don't believe that what I call the Tory government in London really give a shit. To be honest with you,
look again. We're not. Look again. You keep going somewhere else when I ask you a question. Do you advocate going back into Stormont to get Northern Ireland working? Is that what you're saying? Giving up the only leverage that we have?
Well, here's the way to look at it. What did the IRA do during the Troubles? It tried to make Northern Ireland not work. Whenever Sinn Féin decided to jump out of Stormont, it didn't bother them because they didn't care whether Stormont existed whatsoever. So for unionism doing the same thing,
we'll give you that. We'll give you that. So Sinn Féin don't want to make this country work. So
of course they don't.
So how do you think that you can make Northern Ireland work in Stormont whenever that Michelle O'Neill, the First Minister for all, along with, say, Emma Pengelly, which we suspect that it will be, the Deputy First Minister for all. How do you, I mean, do you understand the concept that, and this is a biblical term, is that a house that is divided against itself cannot stand? Do you understand that concept? I mean, are we destined for like compromise on everything? Are we destined for compromising our union on our part in the United Kingdom away through Stormont? Is that what you're saying?
No, in some ways, what I call the Good Friday Agreement, and it's the hunt system. You know what I mean? I think is probably got to the stage where we need to change it in some way. That gives a better representative government. You know what I mean? Whether it be I think it's Jim Allister mentioned what I call it a party, of the willing, government of the willing, coalition of the willing. Sorry.
So what you're advocating here is that the rules were changed, chopped and changed, and again, this is me going back to being around whenever this thing was put together. So you're advocating, and again, I know that Doug Beattie advocates this, but let's all get back into Stormont. Let's do the majority rule thing. And whenever that the thing was being set up, well, nationalists were in the minority, and the rules were changed to permit them into place that there had to be there was a thing called the triple lock in the Northern Ireland Act 1998, and the triple lock would have been that there would have been cross-community consent, there would have been the consent principle, there would have been the petition of concern. And that was all there to protect the minority. In other words, if there was something that was going to be unpalatable to one side or the other, or if it was a minority and they couldn't stomach it, well, there was that, and it was a real break. You could pull the break through the petition of concern. So I think what you're saying is to do away with all that, to allow for a conglomerate of minorities to lord it over the majority of unions.
No, absolutely not. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, if you had what I call the likes of the DUP, the largest party, what I call for unionism, and say like Alliance went in with the DUP, which I doubt, of course, would happen. You know what I mean? Or SDLP and what I call the DUP, you know what I mean, could operate a government. You know what I mean? What I call it without Sinn Féin. You know what I mean? Then so be it. Let that be the case.
So,
but at the end of the day, what I call
so do you advocate for the DUP to be excluded if they don't go back into Stormont? Is that what you're advocating?
No, because at the end of the day, what I call we had it with Sinn Féin, so you cannot treat Sinn Féin differently than the DUP. So whatever happens,
you don't believe in the Ulster Unionist Party stance, because Doug Beattie advocates for the Well, I think what he said, and I have a video here somewhere of him saying it, is that he says, well, we need to identify who that it is that's holding the government up, and we need to exclude them. That's what he said.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
you,
no, I would say that was done out of frustration. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I'm frustrated. You know what I mean? I want the stability, of Northern Ireland because I see that as one of the greatest threats. It works, hand in hand for republicanism.
can you
Not
see
only
why?
here, but the
Can you
rest of the
see
world.
why, in your own words, that unionism is eating itself alive? Whenever you've Doug Beattie saying something like that.
No, no, but absolutely. But at the end of the day, because of the frustration, you know what I mean? We have politicians here that want to go in and make this place work when we don't have stability. Now, you can turn around and say, yes, you won't go in tomorrow and everything will be hunky dory. We need the right type of people in the right position, you know what I mean? Who are big enough to make the changes that we need to make this place work, to give the resemblance of stability.
I'm just popping this up here from Tracy. The DUP are doing exactly what their voters want. Now, the DUP are the major party. I mean, how do you see that? Are they doing what their
Yeah.
voters want?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't attest for every single person in the UP. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, just because what we call I am one person, with one opinion, I may be outvoted by everybody else. You know what I mean? But as I say, it does. My vision for the future is what I call. I do not want Northern Ireland to be wrecked. You know what I mean? I want Northern Ireland. I don't want us to be playing into the hands of republicanism that does not want us to exist.
Do you believe that stability can be built in where that what you do is that you unfairly enhance one at the expense of another?
Right, what it could be in a slightly different situation as we are in divided society. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, what it called, we need to try to bring people together. Angry rhetoric's not going to do it. Stubbing our heels down, stuff like that. There, we need to bring people in. But, so at the end of the day, we have to have equality, whether that be for the individual or whether that be for the party.
So stability. So what you're saying, and that's fair enough. Stability has never ever been built in that way, and can never be built whenever that you enhance one at the expense of another. That's what you're saying. Yeah, fair enough. And again, this is for the purpose of the people that is watching this evening. And what we're going to do is we're going to, I guess, let people see some of the things that I've probably been involved in the past number of years. Now, this is going to shock a lot of people, Darren, and I think you've seen it just before it is that we started. You've got to excuse me with this little clip. I'm going to pop it up here. And I'm going to shock even people that follows me here in the store. But I believe, you see, that you can make yourself open and inviting to others, but you don't have to actually change one jot or one tittle of who you are. You need to do things based on a thing that I call mutual respect for each other's traditions. And if you think that Northern Ireland is a divided land, people have lost their lives because of the contentions here in the past. And I'm saying that on my bio on Twitter, it says this. It says that the gap between quick fix and lasting solution is enormous, but to bridge that gap is where ultimate success can be found. In other words, they're forcing protocols into place, they're forcing Windsor frameworks into place, they're trying to push everybody back into Stormont, and all that it is that it's enhancing one at the expense of another. And I'm saying to the people that I've lived in the past, I came from the Shankill Road. I've seen people being carried down the Shankill Road in coffins. In fact, I've carried some of those coffins myself, and I don't want our society to go back there again. That's why things should never be forced in the way that they're actually being forced right now. And Doug Beattie and the Ulster Unionist Party isn't actually helping matters. Playing a little video clip here, and we'll come back in a second.
Hello everybody, my name is Sarah Louise Mulligan and I am standing here outside Our Lady of Victory's Glasnevin Church, and yeah, I've got a lot of memories here. I was baptised here, my mum and dad got married in this church, I made my first communion in this church, and I'm proud to be from Glasnevin, and I'm proud to stand here and let you all know that I'm running in the Dublin Central constituency.
Yeah. What was it that drove you to want to stand in the election? Now, let me just say something. I heard last week, and I was very intrigued when I heard this, but you stood in the Irish presidential race, did you, for elections?
I did indeed, yes.
Yeah.
It was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I just decided that the people of Ireland needed an alternative person on the ballot, and unfortunately I didn't get onto the ballot, but I tried very hard. But I'm an Irish young lady, and there's no reason on this earth why I couldn't run to be the President of Ireland, because I know I'd make a good one, you know.
Yeah, you certainly would. I mean, you come across to me as a very timid young lady, right? But yet you're taking on this might, you know. I mean, here we have some of the people that stand in these elections. You know, I mean, we all know Sinn Féin, and looking at some of the other people. But, you know, I mean, me coming from Northern Ireland, I kind of know that, you know, these people are very, very hard to stand up against.
Yeah.
What is it that drives somebody like you, a wee timid wee thing, to take on the might of these big parties?
Well, I have to be really honest and say I feel that it's my duty as an Irish citizen to take on all of these people, because first and foremost, our unborn don't really have a voice in Ireland. Obviously, the elderly people of Ireland, they don't have a voice either. So the unborn and the elderly people of this country are very close to my heart.
Yeah.
So I feel they need a young person like me in the Dáil to fight on their behalf. And these people here, in my opinion, aren't really doing a great job. So why not let me be in the Dáil?
Absolutely. And, you know, in terms of social areas, I mean, I often look at our own circumstances in Northern Ireland. I look across into, you know, England and Scotland and whatnot. And I find that although that our contentions are slightly different, you know, the problems that people face are exactly the same. I mean, in Northern Ireland at the minute, I mean, with problems with our healthcare, with problems with our schools, with problems with, you know, the funding and the money that goes into these social areas. I mean, would it be the same in Dublin?
Well, yes, it is the same, because, you know, first of all, we have to think of Simon Harris. Like, he's the Minister for Health. He doesn't have a lot of qualifications, and our health system in Dublin is in a really, really bad way.
Yeah.
So we'll just remove that at that, Darren. But again, I'm typically showing people that I believe that you can bring people together. I believe that you can work with people. I believe that I think sometimes that the Ulster Unionist Party per se, and even the DUP at this moment in time, what they're trying to do is that they're trying to reconcile with the irreconcilable whenever it is that we're talking about the Sinn Féin party that you just admitted there, that doesn't want to see Northern Ireland work. Have you any thoughts on that, Darren?
No, well, the Sinn Féin certainly don't want to, you know what I mean? I'd say their military wing, you know what I mean, blew the infrastructure out of the place, you know what I mean? Put people out of jobs and kill people. So, you know what I mean? Then bring it down Stormont, you know, as a win-win, you know what I mean? So at the moment, as I say, bring it down Stormont, you know what I mean? That works in their favour. In some ways, I think they're using reverse psychology. You know, you better get in, you're damaging what I call it, knowing that, you know, people stay out. And as you say, when it comes to working together, you know what I mean? David Irvine, you said you stood beside Stormont. You know, I didn't vote for him. You know what I mean? Predominantly because of his past. But as I grew to listen to his words, you know what I mean? And I look back now, you know, after his long passing, you know what I mean? I sometimes kick myself, you know what I mean? Because even though I could not bring myself to vote for him, he actually had all, you know what I mean? He had what it took to actually bring people together of both communities and push us forward, not our traditional parties.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of right in terms of that. I mean, David was a man ahead of his time. He was certainly a man ahead of his time in terms of the way that he dealt with things. I mean, he was very, very, I'm going to say, he had a common sense like approach, and that was most definite. But that common sense type approach, it turned out to be wrong. And it turned out to be wrong. Now, I'm saying that David was doing the right thing for the right reasons. But however, I'll give you a quick lesson on the peace process from back then. is that in 1993 this really began. Well, it began before that, but starting in and around the time where it began in earnest, where there was a thing called the Downing Street Declaration. There
Yes.
was ceasefires not too long after, IRA ceasefire first, loyalist ceasefire straight after that. There was talks about talks in Stormont from late 94 going forward. And whenever the Sinn Féin people, they joined the talks about talks, well, they decided that they would do something in a very, very tactical way. And this is a lesson for people. They decided that they weren't real. And this is the point where I say, and I've said to many people, is that everyone should have realized that Sinn Féin weren't serious about peace. In 1995, late 95, Bill Clinton came to Belfast. He was in Mackey's factory on the Springfield Road, and he was. They were talking up peace, and they were talking up that that people should put the past behind them. They should reach out into the other community, and they should embrace the other side. Whilst Bill Clinton was in Mackey's factory on Springfield Road, Bill Clinton's advisors was in the Clonard Monastery, and this later came out in a book that they were being told that the peace process was over. And some 2 months later, what happened was that the IRA let off a bomb in Canary Wharf, causing £500 million worth of damage. Now, I say that that was a tactical bomb. And what that was geared towards was changing and transforming the peace process from being a peace process to an appeasement process. And from that day to this, that appeasement process has continued. Now, again, I say that in February of 2006, 1996, I believe that everyone should have realized, people like David Irvine should have withdrawn, should have stood back and said, look, we can't be part of this if these people are not for real. You can't make peace with people. And I've argued this many, many times throughout, that you can't make peace with people that don't actually want to make peace with you. Now, I hear Jeffrey Donaldson saying today, I don't mean today, but certainly, I have some video clips of Jeffrey Donaldson saying, when leaders are trying to make peace with their enemies, sometimes you need to push the boundaries. And again, I say you can't make peace with people who don't want to make peace with you. I refer to Arlene Foster's comments that, well, you can't feed a crocodile, because if you feed it, it comes back for more and more and more and more. And this is where I stand today. I can do no more. To me, unionism needs to draw a line and say that we're going no further. That what we want is that we want a real reconciliation between our people, but we want a process based upon mutual respect for everyone, in where that everyone gets what they want, that we don't satisfy the wants of extremists in Sinn Féin or another parties. We don't satisfy the wants, but what we do is that we design a society that is based on satisfying the needs of people first, and then we'll talk about the wants after that the needs are actually dealt with, Darren.
Well, the way I would look at it is since 1998, you know what I mean, or since Good Friday, whatever. As I say, we have party politics. You know what I mean? And nobody's actually done it. The Good Friday Agreement was only supposed to be a process. You know what I mean? There was supposed to be some adding to that, change, you know what I mean, to create a better society. Nobody did it. You know what I mean?
Darren, can I tell you how the Good Friday Agreement was being sold back then?
No, well, I voted for it.
Well, can I tell you how it was being sold? Let me pop up a little picture here. I think I've got a little picture that'll tell you how that it was being sold. It was being sold that the union was saved, that the act of the union is the union, and that it was safe, that there couldn't be constitutional change in this country until that there was a vote that was actually put to the people. Now, am I saying that we do not need to attract others to vote for us? We do not need to make ourselves open and inviting to others in order that we can secure our union forever and a day. Well, no, I'm not saying that, and I've had this argument with many politicians, even with Jeffrey Donaldson himself, Mervyn Gibson from the Orange Order, is that whenever you're reaching out into the other community to make yourself open and inviting the others, you can't dispense with who that it is that you are in order to attract those others. What you have to do is you have to set your stall based on, I'm going to say, mutual respect for everyone, or in a way that well, if they respect you, you're not threatening, you don't mean any harm. I mean, this entire equation could be satisfied and sorted very, very easily, and a child can actually design the process which would bring the entire equation in Northern Ireland to an end and to a satisfactory end, which would suit the needs of people. And it would be that if the Dublin government, if the EU, if the Americans, if the UK government, if what they said was, look, listen, people, you're on your own, you've got to make that place work. People that are British remains British. People that are Irish can subscribe to and remain Irish. But that's not the way that they're wanting to do things. Can you see how that it is that people like myself would literally dig the heels in and not want to go any further whenever that we're being trailed somewhere that we don't want to go?
Well, as I say, everybody's different, and everybody has their point by which they don't want to move beyond. You know what I mean? But the way I look at it is, I engage with everybody on Twitter. It doesn't matter who they are. Sometimes I have a spat with them, and then sometimes we take that spat, in direct message. And we find, we go away from the past, because once we talk about the past, it's always about the blame game. You did this, you did that, and all the rest of it. But you see, when you start talking as a person, what that person is, what that person's want is, you know what I mean? And you take the constitutional question out. A lot of people, regardless of whether they're Republican, Unionist, Nationalist, Loyalist, a lot of their daily day-to-day is exactly the same. They want a good standard of life for them, their family. And if it's better here in Northern Ireland, they're not going to vote it away. And these are people who identify as Republican. Now, they won't say that publicly, but privately, they'll turn around and say, if this place is better than what's on offer in the South, then, you know what I mean, I'm not voting that away.
This place is 100% better than what's on offer in the South. And I mean, I've many of the people here who I talk to that I have liaised with over the years, and they'll actually testify to that very fact. So Darren, we're going to come to a close here. I think it's been a very, very interesting discussion. I just want to play one more little thing before that we close. We're going to literally have a final say on what it is that people see. And again, I'm showing people this here, and I guess that what I'm doing is that the people, I'm relatively new to Twitter. I've only been on Twitter since last year. I never really wanted to get involved in the Twitter sphere. However, the other social media platforms which we were big on, they decide from time to time to remove us from our broadcasting and what it is that we do. So we had to actually extend and go onto the Twitter sphere. And I find it with probably more nationalist people that follow our posts, or Republican trolls that follow our posts on Twitter than anyone else. So this is me just, I guess, giving them something to talk about, Darren, and then we'll come back and we'll sort of do our closing comments, and we'll sort of move on. So here we go. I'm going to say to the people, enjoy as you watch.
They only care about themselves. They just don't care. The evil, greedy, selfish bastards, every one of you. And I don't care if I've used bad language. I am begging the Irish people to rise up. Rise up and help your children. Every Irish mammy out there, vote every one of them bastards in that Dáil out. Vote for the new parties, the National Party, Anti-Corruption Ireland, IREXA. Vote for anybody other than those people that are in there. They're not people, they're evil.
Because over the next 5 years, because of turmoil in some countries, economic, political or religious, that you and I, as Irish citizens, will welcome other migrants onto the shores of Ireland.
You were just telling me you're from the United States, is that
Yes,
right?
yes I am.
Yeah.
I'm Irish American. My father was a first generation Irish American who fought in the Pacific Theater in the U.S. Army.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, he served in Burma and Japan.
So we're here at Island Bridge, Garden of Remembrance in Dublin, Ireland, and with my friend John. This morning we spent a bit of time at All Nations Church. I have to say, an experience that everyone should go through. A church, I mean, if one thing that multiculturalism has brought to Ireland, it has brought Christianity, John, and that's something that I would say that everybody should see. So here at the Garden of Remembrance, I mean, if we look around the wall here, it says that this garden is in Island Bridge. It's done to the memory of 49,400 Irish men who gave their lives to go and fight against totalitarianism in the First World War.
It's to unify both sides, you know, so people do understand more that there is a huge tradition from the very beginning of the last century in relation to people that fought in the First and Second World War.
Yeah.
So, and what we need now is more unity because of the times we're living in, both north and south.
Well, I mean, I often say, John, that I mean, I spoke last week at a veterans rally, and whenever I was speaking, what sort of came out, and this stuff just sort of, you know, comes around as you're speaking. But, you know, 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, I mean, people from Ireland, people from Northern Ireland, people from right across the United Kingdom, people from right across the Western world,
Yes.
they stood together in order to fight an assault on our very way of life. And today in 2019, I mean, we're experiencing the same difficulty, and that's exactly what you speak about.
And especially now, it's your community that's going to save the whole of the island, because the traitors we have here and the damage that's been done right across is unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Within 20 years, this place has changed dramatically, and nothing to do with Republic. It's cultural Marxism and socialism, which is the debt to any sovereignty of its people.
It's very interesting that the more that we speak to people from Ireland, per se, the more that we understand is what they say is that, you know, in any form of government it needs an opposition. But here in Ireland they say that there's absolutely no opposition. I mean, would you agree with?
Oh, completely, because they've signed up to the whole European agenda of globalism by directive, and these directives have come in without any referendums on. Well, the Nice Treaty was one there, and they had to have it because it was a constitution to break it, and then the second one was that when they voted no in the first place, the second time they voted yes.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from that point of view, the damage that's been done by directive, what these traitors have signed up to.
Darren, I stopped at that point, and again in the live chat we're talking about EU by directive, and you know, and that was in 2019. I've talked to many people in the south, and what they say is that the EU has changed their country by directive. Now, whenever that we look at this Windsor Framework, there's been not many names, protocol rebranded, Theresa May's backstop, Boris Johnson's oven-ready deal, so on and so forth. It's really all the same thing with a few more bells and whistles upon it. Whenever that we find ourselves locked in the EU single market for goods with EU governance completely over Northern Ireland trade, well, all that the EU have to do is to create a directive in order to further diverge us away from the rest of the United Kingdom in England, Scotland and Wales. And as a professor of politics would have said to me just a few weeks ago here at Restore UK, he said also, John, what I would be worried about, he says, is that when the UK government do the same, when they have got somewhat Brexit, you're separated in terms of your economics. He says whenever that the UK government diverge away, well, what that does is that makes the Irish Sea wider and wider and wider and wider. Can you see why that I would be saying, that people, that other people would be saying, that legal minds would be saying that Doug Beattie has got this all wrong and he's making a huge mistake by advocating giving up the only leverage that we have by going back into Stormont?
As I say, you know what I mean? I wouldn't take it from that direction. You know, speaking to somebody within the company I work for, which is a very large company, what I called, and I asked about the protocol. And the protocol, yes, you know what I mean? I see that from my perspective. You know what I mean? It was a disaster. And there was allowances made, you know what I mean, to make it work. Essentially, what the Windsor framework is, apart from a few other bells and whistles, was the dispensation that was given for the original protocol. They've been put into the Windsor Protocol, so they've been made permanent. And although what I call it from a business perspective, from the size of company that I work for, to them, 90% of what they could expect to get from any sort of agreement, that is what the Windsor framework is to them, minus 10%.
Is politics about business or democracy?
Right. Well, it works in two ways. We need an economy, and if we have a faltering economy, then that affects everybody here.
So we should maybe give the businesses a vote and forget about the people. Is that what you're saying?
No. As I say, what it has to work in between. You know what I mean? Both. You know, what I mean, if you don't have the businesses, the people don't have a job.
Do we remove democracy to satisfy business? Is that what you're saying?
No, we have to listen to the businesses as much as we do the people.
So we dispense with democracy for the people in Northern Ireland that voted in the democratic referendum for the purpose of placating business. Is that what you're saying?
Right. If we're talking about the protocol, well, you know, that's down to, as I say, people at a higher level. You know what I mean? To try and make something work that benefits us. You know what I mean? But if we are going to
do you trust people at a higher level? Do you trust politicians?
No.
Do you trust Rishi Sunak? Do you trust Chris Heaton Harris, Steve Baker, James Cleverly? Do you trust Leo Varadkar? Do you trust Micheál Martin, who says that he wants nothing?
I don't think there's politicians I like and I will respect. Does it mean that I trust them? No. You know what I mean? It's always based on what you actually do. You know what I mean? There's been so many. And that goes for every politician. Doesn't matter what, even Doug Beattie. You know what I mean? I mean, the proof is in the eating. You know what I mean? Show me. Don't tell me. And at the moment, he's telling me everything I want to hear. You know what I mean? I want to see action. You know what I mean? I want to see progress. I want to see Northern Ireland, you know, be a strong, confident, you know what I mean, place that thrives, you know, for the next 100 years, or at least until, you know, I go.
Darren, again, we're just going to try to bring this to a close. But if you go into Stormont, do you think that you can affect change in the future by getting into Stormont?
Well, in part, you know what I mean. Do you know what I'd like to say? Even though I would not be a fan of the DUP, there's people in the DUP that I do truly do respect. But for historical reasons, the party of the DUP, you know, I don't have a lot of respect. But what I would like to see, you know what I mean, is unionist unity within Stormont, being strong together, you know what I mean, and maybe trying to entice individual members of MLAs, independents, you know what I mean, to give what I call it, a unified voice, you know what I mean, to create something that is actually positive for Northern Ireland, that makes Northern Ireland spot out, you know, in comparison to the Republic of Ireland, that gives us advantages, you know what I mean, in economics, you know what I mean, welfare, everything. You know what I mean? That's the way I want to see the union go.
So you're advocating going back to Stormont and working the Windsor framework, is that right?
Right. Well, you said the moment the Windsor framework's going in, regardless. You know what I mean? That is, I believe, now passed.
You're advocating getting back and going into Stormont and working within the Windsor framework. Is that what you're
advocating? I'm saying no. Well, yeah. Basically, unfortunately, it's being put in, regardless of whether, you know what I mean, Stormont is up or down.
So you know, if you're a unionist, you're advocating working to defeat yourself. You're joining the other team to score goals against yourself.
Not unless what you want is complete unfettered access, you know what I mean, out of Europe completely. No European access, and a border between.
So you're giving half your union away, isn't that right?
No, well, that's not the way I look at it. My union is my parliament is Westminster.
Well, do you understand politics? Do you understand that you've got a political union, you've got an economic union, and that's two parts of the union?
That's part of it, but at the end of the
Oh,
day,
no,
you know what I
no,
mean.
no.
I
That is a fact. That is a fact. If you want me to
no,
let you, the professor of politics telling you that, I'll let
no,
you
no,
hear.
no, no. I understand what it called that.
Bear
You know
with
what I
me for
mean.
2 seconds. We'll let you hear John talk. Don't worry, we'll not go down that line. But the union is made up of two things. It's made up of politics and it's made up of political and economic union. And what you're advocating is that you're giving half of the economics to full governance to the EU. That's what you're saying, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I say we would have to abide by some of the rules, of course, when it comes to trade.
So
You know what I mean?
you want some of the rules changed? Is that right?
No, well, what I'm saying is what I call. I would look at the rules. You know what I mean? And what I would say is, there's no divergence from that from what is the UK.
But you
If
see,
it's just because that they,
let me tell you it this way: that we've worked out that there's up to 3,000 directives comes out of the EU every year, and every
uh-huh.
time that they send in a directive away, but that diverges you further and further and further away from the United Kingdom. Now, it is a well-known fact that that is the EU project. I mean, they started off an economic union, that was the EU, and they morphed into a political union. And if I use the words of Jim Allister in where that he said that it is a short step from economic union to full blown political union. I mean, is that what you're advocating?
I
Is
know
that we?
I don't see political union. You know what I mean? With the European Union, I would say we'd have to adhere to some rules, but would still fundamentally be part of the United Kingdom. You know, our sovereign will be King Charles. You know what I mean? Nothing will change apart from some rules that we may have to adhere to.
Yeah.
And what I call, I'm willing to
work
see
the protocol.
to work with that.
So work the Windsor framework in Stormont. Work within the confines of the 98 Northern Ireland Act, which has been changed, which will be changed again for the Windsor Protocol. I'm just going to play one last video. I'm going to look for a comment from you, and I think we'll close. But look, listen, as I said to you at this very, very start, and there's a man here, look, Brad Payne, and he's saying we learned a bit debate instead of shouting over and not letting him put through his point. We are, Brad, look, again, and we're going to take no lectures from you, because if you look back in the live chat, you're telling us that it's over and it's that unionism doesn't have the right to do it. We're not even going to get into it. We've seen some of your comments previously. In fact, I'll tell you what, Brad, here we go, before we move on. Why don't you put yourself forward, Brad, and you come on and you do what Darren's doing, you know, and maybe then we can have a nice video. We're going to do more and more of this here at Restore UK, and I'm addressing the live chat here, is that we're going to bring people on. We're going to try to be respectful. We're going to debate. We're going to try to iron out the issues, and I think that that's maybe the way forward. Another thing that we're going to be doing, and we did start that last year, but we're going to resurrect it again, is that we're going to be doing a phone-in. Do you think a phone-in would be good, Darren, on something like this, where people can phone in and literally talk to a panel and people can give their views and stuff? Do you think that might be a good thing for the future, Darren?
No, 100%. What I call, at the end of the day, what we're lacking is we're sitting in echo chambers, and we're listening to people and agreeing with people that, you know, we've already made our minds up. You know what I mean? So it's alternative voices. And more discussion is required. You know what I mean? What I call, to try and get us somewhere closer to together and how we see the way forward.
Yeah. Well, as I showed you, look, I mean, I don't do echo chamber. I mean, you see, a lot of people wouldn't have even, I'm sure you wouldn't have known that about me, Darren, where, I mean, I have reached out across the border, and I've been doing that for years. I've been talking to people down there, and I have to say that a lot of them people detest Sinn Féin with a passion. A lot of them people are actually like us, and I'm going to say something to people.
I will agree with you there. On Twitter, I've spoken to many people in the south, and I would guarantee you that the people who would love to see unity would like to see unity with the unionists, not necessarily the Shinners, because they're more aligned with our thinking.
You see, here's the problem. You see, we're all being swindled. In Ireland, you're not allowed to be Irish anymore. If you say that you're Irish, you're fascist, you're far right, you're racist, you're all the names under the sun. In fact, you're much like unionists here in Northern Ireland. If you and where the common denominator lies. I mean, I've spoken to people as far away as Italy. I mean, I was offered to go to France this week to cover with a man in England the protests that are going on there. And we've spoken to people in different places, and I have to say the common denominator is this: if you want to stand up for your history, your heritage, your culture, everything that it is that you've ever believed in, if you want to stand up for that, well, globalization is such that it wants to completely destroy it. And that's what we've learned over the years whenever we're out and about and in and around talking to people in different places. So I really want to play just one more little video clip here. And then, Darren, we're going to come back. We're going to give you your last say. And then what we'll do is that we'll close the stream. But listen, Darren, thank you very much for coming along. We've had, as I say, good, really, really good discussion. Perhaps the next time we could get you a video. Yeah. We'll get you up on the video rather than people looking at a little flashing screen. And again, I'm just going to, right, here we go. I will show you Darren at the end. You'll see the picture of Darren behind himself there at the very, very end. So one more video clip. Now, this is I'm going to say it's a serious video clip in that, and this is a message to the Ulster Unionists. This is a message to the people that would think that by literally compromising again, we've compromised, and we've nothing left to compromise on. All we can do right now is to draw the line and say that we're going no further, that we do want reconciliation, that we want to make peace with those, the willing within society. We want to make peace. But yeah, there comes a point whereby that you've absolutely nothing left to give. I'm going to play this little video clip. We're going to come back. We're going to ask for your opinion on the video clip, Darren, and then we'll say our goodbyes. And thanks very much to the live chat from right across the board, staying with us for, well, nearly 2 hours is the fact. But here we go.
It's the rules of the game, and the rules of the game are this: unionism defends and defends and defends until the other team score and the game's over. Unionism doesn't have a goal to shoot into. So the structure of the Belfast Agreement provides no mechanism to strengthen the union or to settle the question forever. So unionism has nothing to gain. So the problem is this: as you say, we've give and give and give, so we're behind in the game and we need to come back. But the rules of the game, there's no net for us to shoot into because our allotted position is to simply defend the status quo. So the message is this, and it has to be this: if unionism generally wants to change, you cannot do it within the structures of the Belfast Agreement as they currently sit. And that doesn't matter if the protocol's fixed tomorrow. That doesn't still change that. So if you fix a protocol, and it's a long way off getting exactly what we need, but let's take it out of sight. Let's say the protocol goes in its entirety. There's still no basis to operate the Belfast Agreement because it's a fundamental deception. It's a structure which is designed to incrementally ease Northern Ireland out of the Union. And Sir John Laws, former Court of Appeal judge in England, made a great point. He put this very succinctly. And he said in relation to the Scotland referendum, why should any one part of the United Kingdom have the ability to dissolve the whole United Kingdom?
Darren, and on that question, I think we'll finish. Why should any one part of the United Kingdom have the ability to dissolve the entire United Kingdom? Over to you, Darren.
Well, the way I look at it is what I call it, yes, what I call the Good Friday Agreement put into place, so that if the majority of people of Northern Ireland decided to what I call leave Northern Ireland, it's a one-way trip. You know what I mean? So what I call, you can vote and regret, but you're not coming back to what I call the United Kingdom, which, yes, is a threat to the United Kingdom, but unfortunately that's democracy. which is why, you know what I mean, me as a unionist, you know what I mean, what I call, I want to be, I want a unionist and loyalist reaching across, you know, within the Catholic community, and not referring to all Catholics as nationalists as we've done in the past. They're potential unionists. And what I call it, we need to engage with them and bring them in. I know many Catholics, you know what I mean, who do not want to see the end of the union. And I've come across some Republicans who have managed to sway, you know, towards unionism. You know what I mean? And what I'm saying is we need to be the salespeople for the union. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you know what I mean? It's lost.
Well, it's certainly lost under the Belfast Agreement. If we decide that we, you know, I mean, I believe that unionism should actually take a stand. I don't believe that it was a very good deal. I mean, I dispensed with it in 1996 whenever the IRA let off a bomb in Canary Wharf, in where that they transformed what was potentially going to be a peace process into an appeasement process. And it didn't matter if they murdered people, it didn't matter if they were gathering information that was likely to be used to terrorists. It did not matter what it is that these people done. I mean, they had the guns out in West Belfast in 2020 and again in 2021, shooting over coffins, one for Mr. Rooney, D Company of the IRA, Lower Falls Road. I'm just saying, is that is who the partners in government are. And that's something that I actually don't subscribe to. So I believe that people should be asked, unionism should draw a line and say that we're going no further. Without unionist support, there is no process. And that's what unionists needs to get into their heads. And when we have the likes of Doug Beattie, who is, the man, I believe that he'll do anything in order to gain himself a vote. And that's just my interpretation of who that it is that the party of Carson has become. In recent weeks, they brought in a man to assess the party, and the assessor who was assessing their party said, "Well, it's finished. That they might as well turn off the lights. They're on life support." I think was the exact words that was being used. I call the Ulster Unionist Party right now insanity politicized. As Einstein would say, continue to do the same thing over and over and over again and expect a different outcome. They've went woke 4 times over and they're going ever more broke as the days and the weeks and the months and the years is actually going on. So Darren, respectfully, I would say is that you know, whilst you maybe want the right thing,
No, well, you see, what I call, if I can just interject there, the one thing I would say is I was a non-voting unionist. You know what I mean? Because nobody represented me. Far right, what I call, or what I call, very right wing unionism does not appeal to me. You know what I mean? What I call it, what I call marches, animosity, stuff like that. That turns me off. You know what I mean? I'm more for. I want people reaching out, and that is what I've seen with Doug Beattie. That he is reaching out into the community that is non-traditionally unionist, and what I call it, engaging with people with the potential of bringing them in. And that's what we should be doing. We should be growing the numbers of unionism outside traditional unionist communities.
Yeah. I seen Joel Keys there on Twitter just last night, was it? And you seen what was written. He's engaging with the SDLP in a discussion for a United Ireland, a new Ireland, so to speak. I mean, I'm not even.
All I can say is what I call. I've been in spaces where people have talked about that. You know what I mean? What I call it, unionists, loyalists, what I call it, Republicans, and all the likes. And the thing is some of the things that are said by unionists, loyalists, this has to change, that has to change. That riles up Republicans because, as I say, they want a united Ireland on their terms. So, in other words, the flag stays, everything's the same. You know what I mean? They win, we lose. And what I call, they're going to change the world. And what I call, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? And when we go into spaces, they show themselves up. And that's one of the reasons why we need to engage in these spaces, because then we show them up for what they are, for who they are, for what their ideology is.
Well, the spaces is okay on Twitter to engage in, but I mean, you don't have to facilitate their discussion with a New Ireland. You just say respectfully, no, we'd like to talk about a new United Kingdom, if that's what you want. But other than that, just continue. Just permit them to be an echo chamber. That's what you should do. I mean, that's my.
In all honesty, with Joel Keys, because he's not an elected representative. Now, if I had been Doug Beattie or what I call Jeffrey Donaldson or any member of the Unionist Party that had gone, to whatever this New Ireland Forum or whatever, that's different. Because at the end of the day, what I call they're the political representatives of unionism. They shouldn't be going anywhere near what I call any forum that is to dissolve the union.
Yeah.
But as an individual, I don't see a problem with an individual engaging.
Well, Darren, very naive, I would say, for an individual to engage with those people. I think Joel's maybe looking for some notoriety, a bit of media sensationalism, let's just say. Anyway, thanks very much for coming along, Darren. Thank you. I mean, it has been respectful. We've discussed a lot. There's a lot that we've agreed with, I have to say. In what it was that we were discussing.
When it comes to woke, you know what I mean? Look, it turns me off. You know what I mean? It's an ideology that is very destructive and destroying throughout the Western world.
Yeah, most definitely. So, Darren, thanks very much. I'm going to say good night to the live chat. We're going to be back again tomorrow evening with another topic, with another subject. And again, the numbers have stayed healthily right across the board. We're broadcasting to Restore UK on Facebook, to the British Unionist People's Voice, to the Restore UK platform on YouTube, and also to Restore UK, that's on Twitter. And if there's anyone would like to maybe take part in some of our discussions in the near future, feel free, get in contact, and we'll do what we've done for Darren, is that we'll have a little discussion, because it's always better to talk about things than it is to create contention, let's just say. Darren, thanks very much for coming along. I really, really appreciate the chat. Thank you.
No, 100%. Okay, thank you.
Good man. See you again in the future, Darren.
Okay, no problem, mate.
I looked outside. What did I see? A little bird. He looked at me. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. His little head. The moral of the story is. You want some head. You need some bread. Right turn. Huh.
With schemes of
outside. What did I see? What did I see? A little bird. A little bird. He looked at me. He looked at me. I lured him close. I lured him close. With a piece of bread. With a piece of bread. And then I smashed. And then I smashed his little head. His little